So, Higurashi Sotsu just ended recently with its 15 episodes continuing on from Go's 24 episode run, and oh boy, do I have a lot of things to say about this. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin, so I guess I'll just give my quick overall thoughts on both seasons and dive deeper later on. Just a disclaimer, this video will spoil all of Higurashi Go and Sotsu. I highly recommend that you only watch Go, as Sotsu is pretty redundant, as you'll see later on, but if you don't care about spoilers, then let's continue. Personally for me, Higurashi Go managed to capture my attention by crafting an engaging mystery that fans were already familiar with in the original 2006 adaptation. I of course didn't expect the whole story to be retold once again, and when Rika showed up in episode 1, this just confirmed to me that we were in for a new story. The majority of Go felt like we were in familiar territory, with Rika having to overcome the hell loops once again, but this time with different scenarios happening. However, Go in its back half transformed into something really compelling that distinguished itself as its own story. Satoko, who was this scared, powerless little girl in the original series, slowly evolved as a character to become an antagonist that a lot of people hated, but honestly, I fucking loved it. Her transformation as a character signaled that Higurashi Go was its own unique story that wouldn't rely on what came before it. It was a completely different genre than the original and focused more on two characters' personal psyche as opposed to an overarching mystery that encapsulated every character in the series. Both Rika and Satoko's personal character arc were extremely compelling in their own way, and the idea of having them essentially face off in a time loop or boxing ring was such an exciting concept. And then Higurashi Sotsu happened. God damn it. Now, I just want to make it clear that I don't think Higurashi Sotsu is abhorrently terrible, but it's just so frustrating when you know a story has so much potential to be great or amazing, and then wastes all that build up into a more than lackluster second season. The ending of Go genuinely made me really excited for what was to come. It set up Rika and Satoko's ultimate confrontation as a battle of wills, only for Sotsu to throw that all out the window and just recap 70% of what we've already seen. Sure, there's new footage here and there showing the minor characters' perspectives, but the only thing that was remotely interesting to me was seeing Satoko learning how to use a fucking gun. But overall, it didn't add anything new substance-wise besides just answering the mysteries that happened in the previous season. And then to top it all off, we were only basically given 3 episodes of new content to resolve the ending, and by that point I was already mentally checked out. I really wanted to like this new iteration of Higurashi, but the way it handled its story left a lot to be desired. When Higurashi Go was initially announced, I was absolutely hyped. Being a huge fan of the original series, as you can tell from my profile picture, Higurashi was one of the series to really get me into the medium of anime. It was a horror and mystery, but unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It had a great cast of characters with their own unique strengths and weaknesses. Combine this with an enthralling supernatural mystery that wasn't afraid of horrific imagery or violence, and you've got a phenomenal story that manages to capture the viewer in more ways than one. The original series was a great horror, not because it was overtly bloody or gory for the sake of shock factor. It was great because it managed to set an eerie and ominous tone throughout the entire series. You genuinely felt scared for these characters because you didn't know what to expect. There wasn't much of jump scares or brutal violence to keep you engaged. Instead, the series slowly revealed new clues and mysteries to keep you on your toes. The brutal murders felt earned because you wanted to figure out what was happening. For me, that was the hook for the original series. Before the first episode of Go aired, this new Higurashi adaptation was marketed as a remake of the original. It had the same seiyus voice acting as the same characters, Kenji Kawai back on as the composer, and Ryu Kishi, the creator himself, on board the project. I thought to myself that if this was going to be a remake, then it was in pretty safe hands. This remake was a great opportunity to get newer audiences into the franchise, as the original series had animation that was quite outdated, although befitting of the atmosphere. However, as episode 1 aired, something happened. Through revealing Rika's powers in the first episode, it was clear that this in fact was not a remake, but a continuation. And you know what? This marketing stunt was a great way to lure people in and created a new sense of mystery, since even older fans had no idea what to expect now. At the time, each new mystery arc of Go felt genuinely interesting since it was familiar enough for older fans to catch all the references, but different enough that the new twists in the story made for a new intriguing mystery. Just like the original series, you wanted to figure out why the tragedies were happening once again, and this time you were placed right in the middle of it with Rika. This was essentially the story of Go up until episode 14, and I was more than completely fine with it, as each arc gave us more clues and insights into what was actually happening. After an episode aired every week, it was fun theory crafting your own ideas about what was happening in this story. However, midway through the series, it became clear that no matter what Rika did to try and prevent the tragedies from occurring, she was powerless in stopping them despite having hundreds of years of experience. After living through the hell that was the original story and breaking past a terrible fate, Rika is now dragged back into Hinamizawa, a place he so desperately wanted to leave in the past. Rika's motivations of wanting to leave the place that had caused her so much pain and suffering is an extremely compelling aspect of her character and was by far one of the best aspects of Go. The series did a great job showcasing the constant pain and trauma that Rika had to undergo, and by a certain point she was ready to completely give up as each new arc only brought upon more brutality and trauma. When you thought that there was a sliver of hope, it would completely get trampled upon moments later. You genuinely felt the despair that Rika was in and even understood why she would contemplate giving up entirely. From Rika's point of view, it felt like she was getting punished for wanting to leave Hinamizawa and dream for a better future. The episode where Satoko brutally tortures her was so fucked up in many ways, but the thing that felt the most off in that episode was when Rika accepted the fact that leaving Hinamizawa was ever a good decision. The series even portrayed it in a manner that felt like Rika was making the right choice, which could never be true, and the next arc that followed answered all of our dying questions. After the events of the original series, where our characters finally broke free of the curse and would continue on to live their own lives, Rika's dream from her never-ending nightmare was to attend a prestigious all-girls academy school, St. Lucia, with Satoko by her side. As the two studied rigorously to pass the entrance exam, they were both accepted into the elite school. However, as time went on, Rika and Satoko would slowly begin to drift away from one another, despite having the promise that they would be together forever. Rika moved on by making new, elegant, high-class friends, while Satoko was stuck in her own perpetual hell loop of always studying. This made her grow to resent Rika as she had broken their own promises to each other. Now, for me, Satoko's transformation from a character I didn't really care about in the original series into a sympathetic antagonist is something I can get behind. We understood her core motivations and the events that led up to this point. She felt betrayed by the person closest to her and was left all alone in a place she absolutely despised. In her eyes, no matter how many times she repeated the events, Rika would always end up leaving her behind and she was doomed to be alone once again. Satoko's inability to accept reality is the catalyst that causes her to transform into the antagonist of the series. No longer was she the scared little girl who needed her older brother to protect her, she evolved into a cunning, manipulative, power-hungry goddess hell-bent on making her own wish come true, even if it meant crushing her best friend. The main conflict was now set up, but just as things were starting to get intense, that was the end of the season. Overall, Higurashi Go by itself was pretty good actually. I didn't view it in the same lens as I did with the original as it felt tonally different, but I could appreciate the new story it was trying to tell. While some arcs did feel a bit dragged out and Satoko's backstory felt a bit silly, it was nonetheless interesting and I was pretty excited to see where the story would continue on in the next season.
Zenomi for my one tap.
Guys, what the fuck? Higurashi Sotsu is bad. Like, I'm not sure who proved this or why it turned out this way, but this is what it looks like for potential to be completely thrown out the window and cook up a half-baked ending. Now, let's ignore the actual ending for a second because that in itself is kind of batshit crazy. Higurashi Sotsu is 15 episodes in total, so you would think that with that amount of runtime, it would be more than enough to build up a nice and satisfying conclusion for where Go left off. Well, you'd be completely wrong. The first 12 episodes of Sotsu are just the answer arcs of Go and add little to nothing of value in terms of quality. This is because you already know who the culprit is behind every arc, and so spending that amount of time without actually continuing its main story feels like a complete waste of our time, especially because the episodes reuse footage we've already seen before. I'm not kidding, it feels like 70% of the answer arcs are just straight cut from Go and treats the episode as if it's completely new material. When they cry, more like when they recap, am I right? Now, at this point in Sotsu, I was already feeling a little more than underwhelmed since I didn't think it was possible for the story to have a satisfying conclusion because it hadn't even continued the main story from where Goro had left off despite it being 12 episodes in already. And what we did end up getting was completely out of left field with a Dragon Ball Z style fight which left me going,
hey guys, 2 quick questions. Number 1, what the fuck am I looking at? Number 2, can you stop? Can we not do this? For 5 seconds? For 5 seconds!
I don't even know what to say because this just feels like they had no idea how to conclude its story. I think one of the most egregious things about Sotsu is how it treats Rika's suffering as equivalent to Satoko's. Like, Satoko literally manipulated so many different fragments just to get Rika to change her mind by letting her suffer through her own pain and traumatic experiences. But at the end, Rika just forgives her because she's her best friend? It doesn't feel earned because it's a false equivalence. One person literally went through all different kinds of physical and mental torture while the other just got left behind because she couldn't learn how to study by herself. If the conflict itself was fleshed out within the season, it could have become a really intense battle for one's true happiness. Granted, Satoko did kill and manipulate many people intentionally, but that just makes her character more ambiguous if anything. However, this was not the case and the final confrontation between Rika and Satoko felt rushed and was poorly executed to say the least. We did get some great animation and homages with the 2 characters fighting on the school roof, garbage dump, and riverside, but this was not enough to make up for a lackluster ending. There are so many other subplots as well that either don't get an actual resolution or are just completely forgotten about. For instance, this person right here, Ayua, Featherine, Scarlet Witch, it doesn't really matter because she was a necessary plot device in order to give Satoko the power to loop between fragments, but it's neither really explained who she is or where she came from, and when Hanyu beats her, she just pisses off into the ether, never to be seen again. Another one is the split personality that develops within Satoko, which I understand the intention behind, but was too poorly handled to make any coherent sense. It's just loose plotlines like these and a rushed convoluted ending that made Sotsu such a lackluster experience. It even has the audacity to play Dear You as if every character in the series got their good ending, despite them being largely unimportant in this story's iteration. I don't think I'll be revisiting Go and Sotsu anytime soon, and I'll probably view this iteration of Higurashi as a self-contained spin-off story that's completely independent of the original, even if it's actually canon. Go is still pretty good by itself and you can still watch it if you're interested in more Higurashi content, but otherwise, I'll just stick with the original. I really wanted to like this series, but knowing what Sotsu does, it just leaves a bitter aftertaste that I can't seem to wash out. I don't normally make negative videos as I much prefer to talk about things I love, but this was a part of the Higurashi franchise and I felt an obligation just to get my thoughts out here in a video. For many people, Higurashi is still an amazing franchise, so please don't let this news story influence your overall thoughts as a whole. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.